Alright, Genesis. Everyone knows it's the first book of the Bible, and we certainly don't have to wait for Deuteronomy or Leviticus to find some kind of outdated immorality and some pretty fucked up things. So, let's talk about it. Okay, so here's what you have to believe if the Bible's true. So, God decides to create man after he creates the universe. He creates man out of dust, blows life into the guy's nostrils, and calls him Adam. Then he creates a garden. He tells Adam he can tend the garden and has to work it and take care of it. Of course, everyone knows the instructions. You can eat everything in the garden except for one thing, and that happens to be the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So then God decides to create animals to help Adam tend the garden. So that makes sense. It's his reason for creating animals. I mean, that's why he made insects and birds and dinosaurs and goats and tarantulas. Makes a lot of sense. Anyway, God decides that the animals aren't quite working out. They're not to his liking, not really satisfactory, not helping Adam very much. I mean, come on, what could a tarantula do in a garden to help you out? Or a bird. Or maybe even a caterpillar. Dinosaur, not very helpful. Unless, of course, maybe you, got a velociraptor with his claws and stuck him into the ground and pulled him by his tail. Could have plowed the ground that way, I suppose. Anyway. Now, it's at this time that God decides, this is not quite going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Adam into a deep sleep. So, puts him into a deep sleep, pulls out one of his ribs, blows on it, and creates woman. Which is how I guess you could infer that sexism got started, I mean, after God went through all the animals and they weren't very satisfactory, he's like, I might as well try a woman. Just a little bit sexist. That's okay, though. Next. Along comes Satan. Okay, now, he's probably the most sly and cunning of all the beasts that God has created. Remember that. God created. And he decides to just go on up to Eve and tell her, so what's up with you not eating that fruit of the tree of knowledge and good and evil? I mean, what's going on? And she's like, well, God told me not to, and I would surely die if I ate of that. And he says, nonsense. You won't die. And he tricks her. So what does she do? She plucks the fruit, takes a big old bite, and then offers it up to her husband. Which, of course, he partakes in the fruit. So they both ate the fruit, and the Bible says, and then their eyes were opened. Which, to me, kind of seems like a good thing. I mean, it sort of implies that they weren't open in the past, and now they are open. You may have been manipulated or shut out from the world in the past, and now you kind of can see things. I mean, sounds pretty good to me. So with all this newfound knowledge, they realize that they're naked, and they become ashamed of it. So they run around, find some fig leaves, cover themselves up, and then God comes a-walking. He calls out for Adam. Adam doesn't come. Later he finds out that Adam was ashamed because he was naked, so he didn't want to be seen by God. I mean, come on, fuck. Anyway, God asks, why were you shy? He realized that he's naked. God asks, how do you realize that you're naked? You didn't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, did you? He's like, yeah, Eve told me to do it. Eve says Satan told me to do it. They passed the buck, the blame game. And then God decides to get pretty pissed off at Satan. He curses him, actually, and this is how Satan became a snake, by the way. He tells him, you're basically going to be crawling on your belly for the rest of your life and eating dirt. So, if you think about it, maybe Satan wasn't a serpent to begin with. Or if he was a serpent, maybe he was a dinosaur. You know what? We may have just found the link between science and religion. That may have been how God wiped out the dinosaurs. Not bad, right? He's like, hey, he's pissed off, you're going to become a serpent, boom, no more dinosaurs. That's why they're all fossils now. See? Science and religion just can coincide. Fantastic. Anyway, Adam and Eve's punishment for eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is hard labor. We've all seen that. And pain in childbirth. Wow. So I guess childbirth was painless beforehand, and God decided to make it painful. Which kind of makes you think, you're like, nowadays we have anesthesiologists for that, and some childbirths are almost pain-free. So are they underhanding God? Are they outsmarting him? Did they successfully outsmart him? Who knows? And that's basically how life began for humankind. Adam, Eve, Garden of Eden, talking snake, tree of knowledge of good and evil, all that stuff. Anyway, Adam, by the way, lived to be 930 years old, according to the Bible. It's amazing how life expectancy plummeted from 930 years to 20 and 30 years. That's before we knew all about, microorganisms and infectious disease and all types of sickness and antibiotics and cures and things like that. So, slowly as we're making our way back up the ladder, it's 60, 70, 80 years old. That's our life expectancy by now. Maybe one day we'll get to that 930 thing where we're almost 1,000 years old. That'd be great. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move forward a bit to Lot. One of my favorite stories in the Bible, one of my favorite nonsense, immoral, insanely violent, disgusting stories of the Bible. Here we go. Now, Lot was Abraham's brother's son. The guy's name was Haran. That was his dad. Abraham, everyone remember him. He was the one that God instructed to kill his son, Anyway, so Lot's a good guy. The Bible makes him out to be a very good guy. After lots of different things happen, Lot moves close to the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, God decides he's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because of their wickedness and their evil ways, and there's homosexuality and all types of crazy shit going on. Anyway, he sends 2 male angels to Lot's house to warn them to get out of the city before God just fucking destroys it. Anyway, so during the course of this little visit of the 2 angels to Lot's house, they basically attract a big mob, and the mob wants to rape the angels. They want to know them. They want to have sex with them. Guess they're good-looking angels. Lot, of course, is appalled at the town's forwardness to want to have sex with the angels, so he offers his 2 virgin daughters to the mob to have sex with. But they're not interested in him. They decline. So basically the angels let Lot know that the town's going to be destroyed. They need to get out. They're kind of lollygagging around, so they grab them all, the 2 daughters, the wife, and Lot, take them out of the city. And they tell him not to look back at the city, but, I guess his wife decided to look back, so boom, God turned her into a pillar of salt. Yes, salt. Yes. So Lot's 2 daughters mistakenly think that they're the only people left after all the catastrophe and destruction of the cities, and they think that their responsibility is to repopulate the whole earth. So they only see one way to make that happen. So they decide to get their dad drunk and have sex with him and get themselves pregnant. How awesome is this story going to get? So what Genesis tells us is that on 2 separate occasions, Lot was tricked into being so fucked up that he decides to have sex with his own daughters. 2 separate occasions, not just once and had sex with them both, 2 different nights. So you're telling me that they got him fucked up and he didn't learn his lesson the first time, and then the next night they got him just as fucked up and he fucked his other daughter. Sweet. And remember, he's the good guy in the story. I just can't see it happening. I mean, shit. It would take a lot of alcohol, especially considering how his daughters look. All joking aside, though, can we really believe this? Was that our beginnings? The book of Genesis? Is that how it all happened? We'd have to believe some pretty messed up stuff to just follow along the story of Genesis. Let's start using our brains a little bit, can we? I mean, the mistakes, and the rib, and the animals, and the incest, and the violence. Really? Does this really sound like an all-knowing, all-seeing God? I mean, come on, let's demand a little bit higher standard of proof or something before we just believe that it was our beginnings. Come on. Thanks for watching, by the way.